The late afternoon sun dipped behind the Seattle skyline, casting a soft golden haze over the sprawling campus of St. Mary's Medical Center. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, carrying the faint scent of disinfectant and quiet despair. Jonathan Steele, a man whose net worth could buy entire city blocks, pushed his daughter's wheelchair down the polished corridor. His tailored charcoal suit and polished shoes reflected the elegance of a life most could only dream of, yet his eyes held the exhaustion of a father who had fought too many losing battles. In the chair sat his 5-year-old daughter, Isabella Steele, a porcelain-skinned girl with deep brown eyes framed by long lashes. She had been born with a severe neuromuscular disorder that left her legs weak and unresponsive. Every specialist, every top hospital, every experimental therapy had been tried and failed. Today was no different. Another session had ended with polite apologies and gentle reminders to accept the reality. Jonathan had heard it all before. Pushing the wheelchair toward the main exit, he exhaled heavily, his chest tightening with frustration. "Come on, Bella," he murmured, his voice low but tinged with a sadness he rarely let others hear. "Let's get you home." They were nearly at the hospital doors when a small voice broke through the quiet hum of the lobby. "Sir, wait." Jonathan stopped and turned toward the sound. Standing a few feet away was a young black boy, no older than 6, wearing a threadbare hoodie and jeans frayed at the cuffs. His sneakers were worn to the sole, his small hands tucked into the pockets for warmth. The boy's dark, alert eyes met Jonathan's. "If you give me one meal, I can help your daughter walk." Jonathan's brows knit in disbelief. He glanced toward the security desk, wondering how the boy had even made it inside. "What did you just say?" "One meal," the boy repeated, his voice steady but soft. "I can help her walk." Jonathan almost dismissed him outright. It sounded absurd, impossible. But Isabella had turned her head toward the boy, her eyes fixed on him with a curiosity he hadn't seen in months. Her small fingers gripped the armrest of her chair as if holding onto a fragile thread of hope. "What's your name?" Jonathan asked cautiously. "Noah Brooks," the boy replied. "I live across the street, in the park." His eyes flicked briefly to Isabella before returning to Jonathan. "My mom was a nurse. She taught me special exercises for my little sister before she passed away. If you give me a chance, I think I can help." Jonathan hesitated, torn between skepticism and the faint spark of something he hadn't dared feel in years, possibility. "5 minutes," Jonathan said finally, his tone sharp but controlled. "You try anything dangerous, it's over." Noah nodded once, a quiet determination settling over his small frame. Jonathan wheeled Isabella back into the physical therapy wing, the echo of their footsteps mixing with the distant beeping of monitors. Inside the private therapy room, Noah knelt down in front of Isabella's wheelchair, his voice gentle as he spoke to her. "Hey, princess," he said with an easy smile. "Want to play a little game with me?" Isabella tilted her head, studying him for a moment before giving the faintest nod. Noah began humming a low, soothing melody, something between a lullaby and a song of encouragement. His hands moved with surprising precision, massaging the muscles in her feet and calves, pressing in just the right spots, his touch neither too light nor too firm. Jonathan stood close, watching with arms crossed, ready to intervene at the first sign of harm, but what he saw instead made him lean forward. The stiffness in Isabella's legs seemed to ease, her tiny toes twitching almost imperceptibly. Jonathan's heart gave an involuntary jolt. "Did you see that?" he murmured. "Probably just a spasm," said the attending therapist from the doorway, her voice guarded. But even she didn't sound certain. Noah didn't look up. "Music wakes up the parts of the body that are asleep," he whispered. "That's what my mom always told me." For the first time in years, Jonathan felt the weight on his chest lift, just slightly. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something he had stopped believing in. The door eased wider on its hinges. A woman in a slate blazer stepped in, badge glinting, Dr. Olivia Reed, lead physical therapist. Her expression was cool, professional. "Mr. Steele, this is highly irregular." Jonathan didn't blink. "You have 5 minutes on the clock, doctor. Supervise it." Reed folded her arms, but stayed. Noah, unfazed, kept humming, low and steady. He shifted position, slid a foam block beneath Isabella's feet, then pressed 2 fingertips along the arch of her left foot. tracing a pattern as if tapping out a secret code. Isabella's lashes fluttered. A tiny curl of her big toe answered. Reed leaned in despite herself. "Where did you learn those points?" "My mom," Noah said softly. "She was a nurse. She helped my sister move her legs when nobody thought she could. Music first, then touch, then balance." He looked up at Isabella. "Want to try a new game? I'll keep you safe." He glanced at Jonathan. "I need her at the edge of a low table, feet touching." Reed hesitated, then rolled out a pediatric plinth and locked the wheels. Jonathan lifted his daughter carefully. Noah guided her posture with the care of someone twice his age. Isabella's heels kissed the foam. Noah took her small hands in his. "Close your eyes," he whispered. "Feel warm sand under your feet. The waves push in and out." He rocked her gently in that rhythm. Forward, back pause, singing under his breath. With each cycle, his thumbs swept the tendons along her ankles, waking dormant paths. A tremor climbed Isabella's calves. She pressed down, weak, uneven, but deliberate. Jonathan's breath snagged. Reed's pen stilled over her clipboard. "Again," Noah said, same calm cadence. "Forward, back, press." This time, the motion was stronger. Isabella's toes curled. Her knees quivered. A tiny sound, half gasp, half laugh, escaped her. Noah beamed. "That's it, princess. Your feet, remember." Reed exhaled through her nose, the guarded tone gone. "She's recruiting." "Not reflex, volitional." She shot Jonathan a look. "I'll allow this to continue, under my oversight. And nothing happens without me or a licensed therapist present. Understood?" "Understood," Jonathan said. Noah let the rhythm fade and eased Isabella back into her chair. Her cheeks were pink now, eyes brighter, fixed on him with an attention that melted Jonathan's defenses. "You asked for a meal," Jonathan said, voice rougher than he intended. "You'll have dinner." "A hot one. And tomorrow we start again, properly." Reed nodded, already scribbling orders. "I want vitals, EMG leads, and a controlled protocol. If there's a response, we're going to document it." As they rolled out, the hospital felt different, less like marble and glass, more like a place where something living had just woken up. Outside, dusk washed the parking lot in copper light. Jonathan opened the car door, then paused. "Noah," he said, meeting the boy's steady gaze. "You're riding with us." The drive from St. Mary's, Medical Center to Jonathan Steele's lakeside estate, was quiet except for the muted hum of the tires. Isabella sat in the back seat, her gaze fixed on Noah, who was seated beside her with his hands folded neatly in his lap. Every few minutes, she would glance at him and then quickly look away, a shy smile tugging at her lips. Jonathan caught the silent exchange in the rearview mirror. It stirred something deep in him, a cautious hope he'd buried years ago. Pulling up the long driveway, he parked in front of the grand, white-columned home. Inside, warm light spilled across polished hardwood floors. Sarah Steele, Jonathan's wife and Isabella's stepmother, emerged from the kitchen, her blonde hair pulled back and an apron dusted with flour. "You're home late," she began, but stopped when she saw the boy. Her expression softened. "And who's this?" Jonathan set his briefcase down. "This is Noah Brooks. He might be able to help Isabella." Sarah crouched to meet Noah's eyes. "Welcome, Noah. You must be hungry." He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Sarah led him to the dining room where a simple but elegant dinner was, already laid out: roast chicken, fresh bread, and steamed vegetables. Noah's eyes widened at the spread, but he waited until Sarah motioned for him to start. He ate slowly at first, manners intact despite obvious hunger. Isabella, from her seat, watched him between bites, her fork paused mid-air. "Will you be here tomorrow?" she asked quietly. Noah smiled, the expression lighting his young face. "If your dad says yes." Jonathan leaned back in his chair. He already did. After dinner, Sarah showed Noah to a small but cozy guest room near Isabella's. The bed was neatly made, a folded quilt at the foot, and a small lamp casting a warm glow. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said gently. Noah's fingers grazed the quilt. "Thank you, I haven't had my own room in a long time." That night, as Jonathan stood in the hallway outside Isabella's room, he heard soft laughter. Peeking in, he saw Noah sitting cross-legged on the rug, showing Isabella how to stack wooden blocks in patterns that mirrored the exercises he'd done earlier.
"She's supposed to be resting," Jonathan murmured from the doorway.
"She is," Noah replied without looking up. "Her legs need rest, but her mind needs to stay awake." Jonathan didn't argue. He watched his daughter giggle, a sound he hadn't heard in far too long, and realized something had shifted. In the morning, they returned to St. Mary's. Dr. Reed was already in the therapy room, her laptop open, electrodes ready for testing. "All right, Mr. Brooks," she said, addressing Noah formally. "Show me what you've got, this time with the data to prove it." Noah grinned at Isabella. "Ready, princess?" She nodded, gripping his hands. And with the first gentle push of her toes against the floor, the monitors began to light up. The soft beeping of the EMG machine filled the therapy room, each spike on the screen marking a tiny victory. Dr. Reed. His eyes darted between the monitor and Isabella's legs as Noah guided her through the gentle rocking motion he'd used before. "Again," Noah encouraged, his voice steady. "Push down. Good. Now relax." Isabella's toes curled with intention, the faint tremor in her calves stronger than yesterday. On the monitor, the once flat lines showed distinct bursts of activity. Reed's lips pressed into a thin line, not out of disapproval, but concentration. "She's initiating movement. This is not reflex." She looked at Jonathan. "It's coming from the brain." Jonathan's chest tightened. "Which means—" "It means," Reed said slowly, "the neural pathways aren't dead. They've just been sleeping." Noah kept working, his small hands applying precise pressure along Isabella's ankles and feet. "My mom always said the body remembers if you talk to it the right way." He began humming again, the same calm melody, his movements in sync with the rhythm. Suddenly, Isabella pressed both feet down at once. It wasn't much, but the motion was strong enough to shift her posture forward. Jonathan caught his breath. Reed leaned closer. "Do that again, Bella." Isabella tried, her brow furrowing with effort. The muscles obeyed, slightly, shakily, but undeniably. Reed turned to Jonathan. "If this continues, we could see functional standing in weeks, not months." Before Jonathan could respond, the door opened and the hospital's chief neurologist, Dr. Michael Grant, stepped in. His sharp gaze swept over the scene. "What is going on here?" Reed straightened. "Documented voluntary, lower limb activity in a patient, previously diagnosed with irreversible paralysis." Grant's eyes flicked to Noah, then to Jonathan. "And you're allowing an untrained child to handle your daughter's therapy?" Jonathan's voice was calm but firm. "Under direct supervision. And it's working." Grant's tone hardened. "This is a hospital, not a playground for miracle stories. If something goes wrong—" "It won't," Jonathan cut in. "And if you want proof, the data is right there." He nodded toward the screen. Grant stared at the EMG readout for a long moment before muttering, "I'll be reporting this to the board." He turned and walked out, the tension in the room thickening in his wake. Noah looked at Jonathan. "Did I do something wrong?" Jonathan shook his head. "No, son. You did something right. That's why they're scared." Reed closed the laptop. "Let's end for today. We'll meet again tomorrow, same time." As they left the hospital, the late afternoon sun bathed the city streets in gold. Isabella sat taller in her wheelchair, her small hands resting on Noah's. Jonathan glanced at them both and thought, for the first time in years, maybe the impossible wasn't impossible after all. The next morning, a crisp breeze swept through downtown. Seattle as Jonathan's black SUV pulled into the patient drop-off zone at St. Mary's Medical Center. Noah hopped out first, holding the door for Isabella with a natural ease that made Jonathan pause. The boy's manners, his calm way of moving, were so unlike what one might expect from a child who had lived on the streets. Inside the therapy wing, Dr. Reed was already preparing the room. Plinth lowered, electrodes ready, and a fresh set of exercise bands laid out. "We'll try progressive weight-bearing today," she said, her tone a mix of professionalism and curiosity. Noah crouched in front of Isabella. "Okay, princess. We're going to stand for the first time. I'll hold you. You can trust me." Isabella nodded, her eyes locked on his. Jonathan and Reed flanked them as Noah gently lifted Isabella's legs to the edge of the plinth, her bare feet brushing the cool tile floor. He began the familiar hum, his hand steady at her ankles, pressing and releasing in that precise rhythm. "Push," he whispered. "Like the waves at the beach." At first, her knees wobbled violently, the muscles screaming in protest at the unfamiliar strain. Noah adjusted, sliding one hand behind her calves, the other guiding her hips forward. "Don't look at the floor," he said softly. "Look at me." Isabella's gaze stayed fixed on him. Then, with a deep breath, she pressed down, both feet flat. Her legs trembled but held. Jonathan felt the air leave his lungs. "She's standing—" Reed's voice was barely above a whisper. "She's weight-bearing fully." Noah grinned. "Told you, Princess. Your legs remember." They kept her upright for several seconds before easing her back to the seat. Isabella laughed, a clear, unrestrained sound that filled the room like sunlight. Jonathan rested a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Dinner tonight is on me, and not just one meal." Reed began typing notes furiously. "If she can do this today, we could see assisted walking in days, not months. But we'll need to brace for resistance." Jonathan knew what she meant. The hospital board, Dr. Grant, the rule keepers, who feared anything outside their control. But as he wheeled Isabella out, with Noah walking beside them, he decided it didn't matter. For the first time in years, they weren't just leaving a hospital. They were carrying hope home,